The massive doors of the council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Hyunwoo walked into the room, his black shoes clicking on the smooth metal floor. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds could form up there. 12 different alien species sat in a perfect circle around him, each one representing a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Hyunwoo looked small in the center of the chamber. He was just a human, barely 6 feet, tall, wearing a simple dark suit. Around him, the aliens towered in their special seats. Some were twice his height. Others glowed with strange lights. A few looked like they were made of living crystal. The Kalari spoke first. Their leader, Velthar, had blue skin that seemed to shine under the chamber's lights. His voice was deep and echoed through the room like distant thunder. "Human representative," he said, "you stand before the Galactic Council to hear our judgment." Hyunwoo nodded politely. His face was calm, showing no fear or worry. This surprised some of the aliens. Most species trembled when they stood before the council for the first time. To Hyunwoo's left sat the Vorthak delegation. They were huge creatures, each one weighing as much as a small car. Their skin looked like gray stone, and their eyes glowed, red in the dim light. Their leader, Battlemaster Krex, made a sound like grinding rocks when he breathed. On his right were the Nexari. These beings looked like they were made of living glass. Light passed through their bodies in strange patterns. When they spoke, their voices sounded like music, but cold music that made most creatures feel uncomfortable. 9 other species completed the circle. Each one was ancient beyond human understanding. Each one had conquered hundreds of worlds. Each one looked down at the human with something between curiosity and disgust. Velthar raised one of his 4 arms. The chamber fell silent. "For 50 Earth years, we have watched your species. We have seen you spread across the stars like a disease. You colonize worlds without permission. You ignore our laws. You trade where you should not trade. You build where you should not build." Hyunwoo listened without speaking. His hands were folded behind his back. His face showed nothing but polite attention. 37 colonies, continued Velthar. 37 worlds you have claimed without council approval. This cannot continue. The Vorthak leader slammed his massive fist on his seat. The sound boomed through the chamber. "Humans are aggressive," Krex growled. "Too aggressive. They expand too fast. They take too much." The Nexari representative spoke next. Her voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "The natural order of the galaxy has been disturbed. Young species must learn their place. They must show respect to their elders." Other voices joined in. The snake-like Sethrani hissed about human ships, in their sacred systems. The floating ethereals complained that human thoughts were too loud and chaotic. The insect-like Hivari clicked angrily about human interference with their food sources. Hyunwoo waited. He knew this was not really a trial. This was a show of power. The council had already decided what they wanted. They just wanted him to hear it and fear it. Velthar raised his arms again. "The council has reached a decision. Humanity will comply with the following terms or face the consequences." The chamber's lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared in the air above Hyunwoo's head. It showed human space, with Earth at the center and lines reaching out to 37 colony worlds. "First," Velthar announced, "all human colonies beyond the Sol system will be abandoned within 1 galactic standard year. All humans will return to Earth or face forced removal." Red lines appeared on the hologram, cutting through the colony connections like a sword. "Second, all future human expansion must be approved by this council. No human ship may travel beyond Sol system boundaries without written permission. Third, humanity will pay compensation for the chaos you have caused. The amount equals Earth's total economic output for 100 years. Fourth, human military forces will be reduced to planetary defense only. No human warships may operate beyond Earth's moon. Fifth, human trade agreements with non-council species are hereby canceled. All human commerce must go through council-approved channels. The hologram showed Earth surrounded by a glowing cage. It looked like a prison. Hyunwoo studied the display carefully. He walked in a slow circle, looking at it from different angles. The aliens watched him, waiting for the fear to show on his face. They expected begging. They expected anger. They expected tears. Instead, Hyunwoo smiled. It was not a big smile. It was small and quiet, like someone had just told him a private joke, but it was definitely a smile. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. The Kalari had conquered 1,000 species. None of them had ever smiled when hearing terms like these. "You find our judgment amusing, human?" Velthar's voice was dangerous now. "Not amusing," Hyunwoo replied. His voice was calm and friendly. "Interesting. Very interesting indeed." Battlemaster Krex leaned forward. His red eyes glowed brighter. "You do not seem to understand the situation, small creature. We are not making suggestions, we are giving orders." Hyunwoo's smile grew a little wider. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You want humanity to abandon everything we have built. You want us to become prisoners in our own solar system. You want us to pay you for the privilege of our own defeat." "Yes," hissed the Sethrani representative. "Finally, the human shows wisdom." "And if we refuse?" Hyunwoo asked. The chamber erupted in sounds. Roars from the Vorthak, musical threats from the Nexari, hissing from the Sethrani. The message was clear. Refusal would mean war. War against 12 ancient civilizations. War that humanity could, not possibly, win. Hyunwoo nodded thoughtfully. "I see. Well, I certainly need to discuss this with my people. These are very serious terms." "There is nothing to discuss," Velthar declared. "You will comply or be destroyed." "Of course," Hyunwoo agreed. "But surely you understand that humans have this thing called democracy. We vote on important decisions. It takes time." The aliens had heard of human democracy. Most thought it was a sign of weakness. How could a species make good decisions when everyone got to have an opinion? "How much time?" asked the ethereal representative, its voice like whisper in the wind. "Oh, not long. A few months, perhaps. Maybe 6 at the most. Democratic processes can be slow, but they are thorough." Velthar's eyes narrowed. 3 months. No more." "Generous," Hyunwoo said, bowing slightly. "I will relay your offer to my government." "It is not an offer," Krex rumbled. "It is a command." "Of course," Hyunwoo replied, still smiling. "A command. I will relay your command to my people." The way he said it made some of the aliens uncomfortable. There was something in his voice, something they could not identify. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was something else entirely. "The session is ended," Velthar announced. "Return to your ship, human. Return to your people. Tell them what you have heard here today." Hyunwoo bowed again, deeper this time. "Thank you for your time, honored council. This has been most educational." He turned and walked toward the chamber doors. His steps were steady and confident. He did not hurry. He did not look back. And he was still smiling. The massive doors closed behind him with another sound like thunder. The council chamber fell silent. "Did that seem normal to you?" asked the Nexari representative. Velthar frowned. In 50,000 years of council history, no species had ever smiled when receiving surrender terms. Fear, yes. Anger, yes. Despair, certainly. But never amusement. "Humans are young and foolish," he said finally. "They do not yet understand the reality of their situation. When they do, the smiling will stop." But deep down, Velthar was not so sure. There had been something in the human's eyes, something that suggested the reality of the situation might be very different from what the council believed. 3 months had passed since Hyunwoo's meeting with the Galactic Council. The human ambassador continued to attend weekly sessions at council headquarters, always bringing the same message. Humanity was still discussing the terms. The democratic process was taking time. There were many opinions to consider. Each week, Velthar asked the same question. When will humanity provide its compliance plan? Each week, Hyunwoo gave the same type of answer. Soon, honored Velthar. These things cannot be rushed. Democracy is complex. And each week, Hyunwoo smiled that same quiet smile that made the council members feel uncomfortable. What the council did not know was what was happening in human space during those 3 months. They had spies, of course, but human space was vast, and humans had proven surprisingly good at keeping secrets. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Dong Wook stood on the bridge of the mining ship New Seoul, through the massive windows. He could see dozens of other ships working around the clock. The asteroids were being stripped of metal at a rate no one had ever seen before. "Production report," Dong Wook called out. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Eun-ji, checked her tablet. "We're running at 300% normal output, sir. The refineries can barely keep up." "Good. What about the special materials?" "All rare elements are being shipped directly to the military contractors as ordered. No questions asked. No records kept beyond basic safety requirements." Dong Wook nodded. He had been mining asteroids for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this operation. Ships arrived empty and left full. The ore went to places he had never heard of, for projects he was not allowed to ask about. But he knew why. They were working so hard. Every human in the belt knew why. The Council wanted them to give up everything they had built. The Council wanted them to crawl back to Earth like beaten dogs. "Let them try," Dong Wook muttered, watching another massive cargo ship disappear into the darkness of space. On Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, engineer He Jin was having a different kind of busy day. The construction project she was managing officially did not exist. According to all public records, the facility being built under Europa's ice was a research station for studying deep ocean life, but research stations did not need armor plating that could stop military-grade weapons. They did not need power cores that could run a small city, and they certainly did not need the kind of mysterious equipment that arrived in unmarked ships every few days. "How many more of these platforms do we need to build?" asked her assistant, Ji-won, as they watched another massive piece of machinery being lowered into place. "Classified," Hyojin replied automatically. "Just keep building. The specifications are clear." Ji-won looked around at the enormous construction site. "This doesn't look like any research station I've ever seen." "That's because you're not a researcher," He-jin said with a grin. "You're an engineer. Just trust the process." The truth was, Hyojin was not entirely sure what they were building either. The plans were marked defensive platform prototype, but some of the components looked more offensive than defensive. The reactor alone was powerful enough to run a battleship. But orders were orders, and the orders came from the very top of the human government. Build fast, build strong, and ask no questions. Far out on the edge of human space, on a research station orbiting Titan, Dr. Jae-min was working on something that officially did not exist at all. Project Prometheus was so classified that even its name was secret. Most of the scientists working on it did not know what the other teams were doing. Jaemin's part of the project involved something the paperwork called advanced terraforming technology. But the math he was working with had nothing to do with changing atmospheres or adjusting gravity. His equations were about energy output, particle acceleration, and precision targeting. "Doctor," his assistant, Subin, called from across the lab. "The latest test results are in." Jae-min looked at the data on his screen. The numbers were better than he had hoped. Much better. "Efficiency is up to 92%, Subin continued. "And the targeting system is accurate to within 1 meter at maximum range." "Excellent. Send the results to Dr. Young-soo's team. They'll want to run integration tests." Subin hesitated. "Sir, I have to ask, what exactly are we building here? This technology, if it works the way these numbers suggest..." Jae-min looked at his young assistant. Subin was brilliant, but still naive about how the galaxy really worked. "We're building the future," he said finally. "The question is whether it will be the future the Council wants or the future humanity needs." Back on Earth, in a secure conference room deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Director Min-ho was reviewing reports from across human space. Admiral Soo-jin sat to his right, her uniform crisp despite the long hours they had all been working. Dr. Bo-ra sat across from them, her tablet full of data about alien psychology and military capabilities. "Status report," Min-ho said. Admiral Soo-jin spoke first. "Industrial output is ahead of schedule across all sectors. The asteroid mining operations are producing raw materials faster than we can process them. Military shipyards are running at maximum capacity." "Hidden colonies?" Min-ho asked. All 73 are fully operational and completely invisible to Council sensors. The new stealth technology is working better than expected. Minho raised an eyebrow. 73? I thought. We only had 68. 5 more came online this week. Turns out some of our more enterprising citizens have been building settlements the government didn't even know about. Dr. Bo-Ra laughed. That's humans for you. Tell us we can't do something and we do it twice. Minho turned to Dr. Bo-Ra. What about our alien friends? Any change in their behavior? They're getting suspicious, she admitted. Council intelligence reports show they're asking more questions about our industrial activity, but they still don't understand what they're looking at. Why not? Because they're thinking like the Council. They expect us to either submit or prepare for a defensive war. They can't imagine what we're actually doing because they've never seen anything like it before. Admiral Sujin leaned forward. Are we sure this will work? We're betting everything on the assumption that 12 ancient civilizations don't really understand how humans think. Dr. Bo-Ra smiled, and for a moment she looked just like Ambassador Hyunwoo. That's exactly what we're betting on, and based on their behavior so far, it's a good bet. They keep sending inspection teams to our official colonies, Minho noted. What do they find? Exactly what they expect to find, Admiral Sujin replied. Scared colonists packing up to leave, mining operations shutting down, military bases being dismantled. Everything looks like we're preparing to comply with their demands. And our real preparations? Completely invisible. The Council's sensors are designed to detect their technology and their approach to warfare. We built something different. Dr. Bo-Ra pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy from the Council's perspective. Human space looked small and contained, with just 37 known colonies clustered around Earth. Then she changed the display to show the real situation. Suddenly, human presence appeared throughout the galaxy. Hidden bases, secret colonies, mining operations in systems the Council thought were empty, supply lines running through supposedly neutral space. They think they're dealing with a young species that got lucky, Dr. Bo-Ra explained. They don't realize they're dealing with a species that has been studying them for 50 years while they ignored us. Minho studied the display. How long? Before they figure it out? Depends on how curious they get. If they keep using their standard sensors and standard thinking, we could probably hide for years. But if they start really investigating, then we better be ready, Admiral Sujin finished. Minho nodded. How much longer do we need? Project Prometheus will be ready in 6 weeks, Dr. Bo-Ra said. The defensive platforms will be operational in 4. The fleet modifications are almost complete. And our surprise guests? Admiral Sujin's smile was almost predatory. They're eager to meet the Council, very eager indeed. The meeting ended, and the 3 humans left the secure room. Above them, on the surface of the Earth, normal life continued. People went to work. Children went to school, and the news reported the ongoing diplomatic negotiations with the Galactic Council. But deep in space, in hidden corners of the galaxy, humanity was preparing for something the Council could not imagine. Not surrender. Not a desperate last stand. Something else, entirely, something that would change the galaxy forever. At the next Council session, Hyunwoo delivered his weekly update with the same polite smile. Progress continues, Honored Council. The democratic process is thorough, but we are moving toward a resolution. Velthar's patience was wearing thin. How much longer, human? Not much longer now, Hyunwoo assured him. I believe you will find our final answer quite comprehensive. And he smiled that smile again, the one that made the ancient aliens so uncomfortable. They had no idea how comprehensive that answer would be. The council chamber had never felt so tense. Velthar sat in his ornate chair, his blue skin darker than usual with anger. Around the circular chamber, representatives from all 12 species showed signs of growing impatience. The deadline humanity had been given was only 1 month away, and still there was no clear answer. Hyunwoo walked into the chamber just as he had dozens of times before. But today was different. Today he was not alone. Behind him walked Admiral Sujin, her crisp military uniform bearing no insignia that the aliens recognized. Her eyes swept the chamber like she was calculating distances and angles. Next came Dr. Bo-Ra, carrying a small device that made some of the more sensitive species feel uncomfortable. The Nexari representative shifted in her crystalline chair. "Why do you bring others today, human? This is not a military meeting." Hyunwoo's smile was broader today, more confident. "Honored Council, I come today with humanity's final answer to your generous terms." Battlemaster Krex leaned forward, his massive stone-like body creaking. "Finally, you will announce your compliance plan." "Not exactly," Hyunwoo replied. He gestured to Dr. Bo-Ra, who activated her device. The chamber's lighting system dimmed as a massive holographic display materialized in the center of the room. At first, it showed the same map the Council was familiar with. Earth at the center, with 37 human colonies spread in a small cluster around it. "These are the human territories you know about," Hyunwoo said pleasantly. "The 37 colonies you want us to abandon. The space you want us to retreat from." Velthar nodded impatiently. Yes, we know what we demanded. Show us your withdrawal plan." "Ah," Hyunwoo said, his smile growing even wider. "But that's the problem, you see. Your demands were based on incomplete information." Dr. Bo-Ra touched her device. The holographic display flickered, then changed completely. Suddenly, the map exploded with new points of light, hundreds of them. Human settlements, mining operations, research stations, and military bases appeared throughout the galaxy. They were not clustered around Earth anymore. They spread across the entire galactic map like a vast web. The council chamber erupted in noise, roars from the Vorthak, musical shrieking from the Nexari. The snake-like Sethrani began hissing in their own language. The floating ethereals moved in rapid, agitated circles. "Impossible!" Velthar shouted, rising from his chair. "Our sensors would have detected—" "Your sensors," Admiral Sujin interrupted, speaking for the first time, "are very good at detecting your technology and your way of thinking. Unfortunately for you, we don't think the way you do." The holographic display zoomed in on different sections of the galaxy. Hidden mining operations in asteroid fields the Council thought were empty. Research stations disguised as dead space. Rocks. Entire colonies built inside hollowed-out moons, invisible to standard scans. "How long?" Velthar's voice was barely controlled. "How long what?" Hyunwoo asked innocently. "How long have you been building this hidden empire?" Dr. Bo-Ra checked her tablet. "Some of these settlements are older than first contact with the Council. Humans have been exploring and colonizing since we developed faster-than-light travel. We just didn't see any reason to ask permission from people we had never met." The ethereal representative drifted closer to the display. Its voice was like wind through empty rooms. "The scope of deception is vast. You have violated the territory of every council species." "Violated?" Admiral Sujin raised an eyebrow. "By whose law? We never agreed to your territorial claims." "In fact, we were never asked if we agreed. You simply told us they existed." Battlemaster Krex stood up, his massive form towering even over the other large aliens. "You dare question Council authority?" "We're not questioning it," Hyunwoo replied calmly. "We're ignoring it." The chamber fell silent. In thousands of years of Council history, no species had ever simply declared the Council irrelevant. Velthar found his voice first. "You cannot ignore us. We are the Galactic Council. We have maintained order for 50,000 years. And you've done a wonderful job," Dr. Bo-Ra said with genuine admiration. "For 12 species. But the galaxy is much larger than 12 species. Isn't it?" She touched her device again. The holographic display changed once more. Now it showed not just human settlements, but dozens of other points scattered throughout the galaxy. Each one was marked with a different symbol. "During our expansion, we've encountered 43 species that the Council doesn't know about," Dr. Bo-Ra explained. "Most of them have been hiding from you for centuries. They've seen what happens to young species who draw Council attention." A new voice spoke from the chamber entrance. "They've seen species like ours threatened and bullied into submission." Every head in the chamber turned. Walking through the massive doors was Captain Dong-Wook, but he was not alone. Behind him came representatives from a dozen different species. Some were humanoid, others were clearly not. A few looked like they might not even be from this galaxy. "Who are these creatures?" demanded the Sethrani representative. "Allow me to introduce some of our friends," Hyun-woo said, still smiling. "Captain Dong-wook, whom you may recognize as one of our mining operation commanders. Behind him are representatives from the Zorani Federation, the Luminar Collective, the Free Worlds Alliance, and several other groups." The new aliens spread out around the chamber. They moved with confidence, not fear. Their body language suggested they were here as equals, not supplicants. The Zorani representative was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Her voice was clear and strong. "We are no longer hiding from the Council. Humanity has shown us that the ancient powers are not unbeatable." The Luminar delegate glowed with soft internal light. Its voice sounded like distant music. "We have watched the Council for generations. You rule through fear and superior numbers. But numbers mean nothing when your opponents refuse to fight by your rules." Velthar looked around the chamber in growing alarm. "This is not possible. Our intelligence networks would have detected such a conspiracy." "Would they?" Admiral Su-jin asked. "Your intelligence networks look for the kind of activities your species would engage in. Massive fleet, movements, direct challenges to authority, open defiance. But humans don't think that way," Dr. Bora continued. "We prefer to make friends first and fight later, if at all. While you were watching for military buildups, we were having conversations." The holographic display showed the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. Not just hidden colonies and secret bases, but a vast network of alliances and trade agreements with species the Council had never heard of. "You asked us to withdraw from 37 colonies," Hyun-woo said. "But we actually have over 200 settlements. You demanded we submit to Council authority, but we've spent 50 years proving that Council authority only exists where people choose to recognize it." "This means war," Battlemaster Krex growled. "The Council will not tolerate this defiance." "War?" Admiral Su-jin looked genuinely surprised. "Who said anything about war? We're not attacking anyone. We're just living our lives and making friends." "You are violating our territorial claims," Velthar shouted. "Your territorial claims," the Zorani representative said calmly, "assume that you have the right to claim territory. We reject that assumption." The Luminar delegate's glow brightened. "The galaxy belongs to all who live in it, not just the 12 who claim authority over it." Dr. Bora nodded. "That's the real issue, isn't it? For 50,000 years, you've gotten used to being the only voices that matter. You've forgotten that authority only exists when people agree to accept it." "We never agreed," said a new voice from the entrance. Another group of aliens entered the chamber. These ones the Council did recognize. They were from species that had submitted to Council rules centuries ago. But something was different about them. They stood straighter. Their eyes were brighter. They looked like people who had remembered something important. "The Corvin Republic withdrew its recognition of Council authority 3 months ago," announced their leader. "We are here as observers only." "The Talarian Consortium has also chosen independence," said another. "We thank the Council for their years of service, but we no longer require your guidance." Velthar sank back into his chair. Around the chamber, the other Council representatives looked stunned. Their empire was crumbling in real time, and they had not even seen it coming. "What do you want?" Velthar asked finally. Hyun-woo's smile became genuinely warm. "The same thing we wanted from the beginning," honored Velthar. "To be left alone to live our lives as we see fit, and to help our friends do the same." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Su-jin shrugged. "Then you refuse. The galaxy is large enough for all of us. You can continue to rule the species that choose to accept your rule. The rest of us will manage our own affairs." "This is not over," Battlemaster Krex warned. "No," Hyun-woo agreed. "It's just beginning. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place." The holographic display showed the final truth. Dozens of species, hundreds of worlds, all connected in a vast network of mutual cooperation and trade. And at the center of it all, not ruling but facilitating, was humanity. The age of the 12 Species Council was over. The age of the free galaxy had begun, and it had all started with a simple human smile. The Council's response came exactly 48 hours after the revelation in the chamber. It was swift, decisive, and completely predictable. War fleets from all 12 species began converging on human space, led by the massive Kalari dreadnought, Supreme Order under Admiral Thekmore's command. The Supreme Order was a ship that had conquered hundreds of worlds. It was 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. Behind it came the Council's entire war machine. Vorthak battleships like floating mountains, Nexari stealth vessels that bent light around themselves, and support. Fleets from 10 other species. Admiral Thekmore stood on his bridge, studying tactical displays that showed the movement of human ships. What he saw confused him. Instead of gathering their forces for a defensive stand around Earth, human fleets seemed to be scattering in all directions. "Are they running?" asked his second-in-command, Captain Zolkar. "It appears so," Thekmore replied, but something bothered him about the patterns he was seeing. "Send pursuit squadrons after the larger groups. We'll crush them before they can regroup." Captain Dongwook received the pursuit order while his small fleet was moving toward the outer rim of human space. His ships were older mining vessels converted for military use, nothing that should worry a Council task force. On his tactical display, he could see 3 Vorthak heavy cruisers closing on his position. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the Vorthak ships are demanding our surrender." "Open a channel," Dongwook ordered. The Vorthak commander appeared on screen, his stone-like face set in an expression of contempt. "Human vessels, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now and your crews will be spared." Dongwook smiled, and for a moment, he looked just like Ambassador Hyunwoo. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm afraid we have other plans. You cannot run forever, human. Submit now or be destroyed." "Run?" Dongwook looked confused. "Who said anything about running?" His fleet suddenly changed course, turning to face the pursuing Vorthak ships. But instead of charging at them like the Vorthak expected, Dongwook's ships spread out in a strange formation that made no tactical sense according to any warfare manual the Council had ever written. "What are they doing?" Captain Zolkar asked. Thekmore frowned at his displays. "Unknown. Open fire when they enter range." But before the Vorthak ships could fire, something impossible happened. Energy beams lanced out from Dongwook's converted mining ships, crossing space faster than anything the Council had ever seen. The beams hit the Vorthak vessels before their defensive systems could even detect the attack. The lead Vorthak cruiser simply disappeared. Not destroyed in a spectacular explosion, but vaporized so completely that the sensors could not find any debris. "What was that weapon?" Zolkar gasped. The second Vorthak ship tried to return fire, but Dongwook's fleet was no longer where it had been. The human ships were moving in ways that violated everything the Council knew about space combat, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield like ghosts. The third Vorthak cruiser lasted exactly 14 seconds. Admiral Thekmore received the impossible report while his fleet was still days away from Earth. 3 of his best ships destroyed by converted mining vessels. No survivors, no debris, no explanation. "Send more pursuit squadrons," he ordered, "and equip them with full sensor arrays. I want to know what weapons these humans are using." Commander Ji-hoon was leading another fleeing human squadron when the second wave of Council ships found him. This time, it was a mixed force. Nexari stealth ships, ethereal energy vessels, and a Sethrani command cruiser. The Nexari ships were virtually invisible, their stealth technology perfected over thousands of years. They should have been able to approach the human ships undetected and destroy them with surprise attacks. Instead, Ji-hoon's ships opened fire on empty space and somehow hit targets that were not supposed to be there. The Nexari vessels, stripped of their invisibility by weapons that could track them through dimensions they did not know existed, found themselves defenseless against human precision. "How are they seeing us?" the Nexari captain transmitted before his ship was reduced to cosmic dust. Ji-hoon never bothered to answer. The pattern repeated across dozens of star systems. Council forces that had never known defeat found themselves outmatched by supposedly primitive human ships. Weapons that had conquered galaxies proved useless against human defenses. Battle tactics that had worked for millennia were countered by strategies that made no sense. On the surface of New Busan, humanity's third largest colony, General Tae Young prepared for a different kind of fight. Council ground forces were approaching the planet, expecting to find a normal colonial settlement that would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. What they found instead was a world where every citizen was a potential combatant and every building was a potential fortress. The Council troops landed in what their intelligence said was the main city. Instead, they found themselves in a maze of underground tunnels and hidden passages. The humans did not line up for a conventional battle. They simply vanished into their own city and began fighting a war the Council had never seen before. "Where are they?" demanded the Kalari ground commander as his troops searched empty streets. His answer came in the form of precise sniper fire from buildings that sensors showed were empty. His vehicles were destroyed by explosives that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. His communications were jammed by signals that came from every direction and no direction at all. Within 6 hours, the Council had lost 2/3 of their ground forces without ever seeing most of their enemies. Back on the Supreme Order, Admiral Techmore was receiving reports that made no sense. His fleets were being systematically destroyed by forces that should not have been able to challenge a single Council cruiser, let alone entire battle groups. "The humans are using unknown technology," his intelligence officer reported. "Weapons that appear to manipulate space-time itself. Ships that can exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Defense systems that seem to predict our attacks before we make them." "Impossible," Techmore growled. "No species developed such technology in only 50 years. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human Admiral Sujin. On screen." Admiral Sujin appeared on the bridge's main display. She was sitting in what looked like a standard human command center, but the technology visible around her was clearly far beyond anything the Council had expected from humanity. "Admiral Techmore," she said politely, "I wanted to speak with you before this situation gets out of hand." "You dare offer terms to the Council?" Techmore snarled. "I'm not offering terms," Sujin replied. "I'm offering an explanation. You see? You've made a fundamental error in your calculations." "What error?" "You assumed we would fight the kind of war you understand. The kind of war the Council has always fought. But humans don't think like the Council." Behind Sujin, a holographic display showed the tactical situation across human space. But instead of the scattered, desperate defense the Council expected to see, it showed something much more organized. Human forces were not running randomly. They were executing a coordinated strategy that was systematically dismantling Council forces across dozens of systems. "You sent your fleets to chase our ships," Sujin continued, "but we weren't running from you. We were leading you where we wanted you to go." The display zoomed out to show the larger picture. Council fleets, pursuing what they thought were fleeing human ships, had been drawn away from their supply lines and into carefully prepared ambush zones. What looked like random panic was actually a precisely choreographed dance. 50 years ago, when we first met the Council, we started studying you, Sujin explained. "We learned your tactics, your technology, your ways of thinking. But you never studied us, because you didn't think you needed to." "We have studied human technology," Techmore protested. "Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are slow. The BA technology you've seen is primitive," Sujin agreed. "Because we showed you what you expected to see. But while you were dismissing us as backwards primitives, we were developing something entirely new." The display showed technical schematics that made no sense to Council science. Weapons that manipulated fundamental forces. Ships that could step outside normal space-time. Defense systems that learned and adapted in real time. Project Prometheus, Sujin said simply. 50 years of human innovation guided by everything we learned about your strengths and weaknesses. Techmore stared at the displays in growing horror. This level of technology should take millennia to develop. For species that think like the Council, yes, but humans have this annoying habit of refusing to accept that things are impossible. On Q, Techmore's sensor officer reported something that should have been impossible. Human ships were appearing throughout the Council fleet, not from hyperspace, but from what looked like folded space itself. "You're surrounded, Admiral," Sujin said gently. "Your fleets are scattered across 100 systems, cut off from supply and reinforcement. Your ground forces are learning what happens when they try to occupy a human world. And your technology advantage has turned into a disadvantage because You're fighting an enemy you don't understand. The Council will not yield to primitives. 6 months after the war began, Admiral Theckamore sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. It was not a victory report. It was a request for ceasefire negotiations. The mighty Council fleets, which had conquered hundreds of worlds and never known defeat, were scattered across the galaxy in pieces. The Supreme Order itself had limped back to Council space, with half its systems destroyed and most of its crew in medical bays. The negotiations took place on Haven Station, a neutral facility that had served as a diplomatic meeting point for over 1,000 years. But this time was different. This time, the humans were not coming as supplicants begging for mercy. Ambassador Hyun-woo entered the negotiation chamber with the same quiet confidence he had always shown. But he was not alone. Admiral Soo-jin walked beside him, her uniform bearing new insignia that the council members did not recognize. Dr. Bo-ra carried data tablets full of information that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of itself. Behind them came a delegation that made Velthar's heart sink. Captain Dong-wook, whose mining ships had destroyed 3 Vorthak cruisers, Commander Ji-hoon, who had made Council stealth technology obsolete, General Tae-young, who had shown the galaxy what happened when humans defended their homes. But most disturbing of all were the non-human faces in the delegation. Zerani representatives with their flowing silver skin, Luminar delegates glowing with internal light, and behind them, beings from species the Council had never seen before. Velthar looked older than his thousands of years. The blue glow of his skin seemed dimmed, and his forearms moved with less confidence than before. Around the negotiation table, the other council representatives showed similar signs of defeat. "What do you want?" Velthar asked without ceremony. Hyun-woo's smile was warmer now, less mysterious. "The same thing we wanted from the beginning," honored Velthar. "The right to exist without interference. You have destroyed our fleets. You have humiliated our armies. You have turned half the galaxy against us. What more could you want?" "Actually," Dr. Bo-ra said, consulting her tablet, "we've only destroyed about 30% of your military forces. Most of your ships withdrew when they realized they were outmatched. We try not to kill people unnecessarily." Battlemaster Krex, his stone-like face bearing new scars from the failed ground assault on New Busan, leaned forward aggressively. "You speak of mercy, but you have ended the Council's authority forever." "No," Admiral Soo-jin corrected gently. "We've ended the Council's ability to impose its authority on unwilling species. There's a difference." She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. The Council's core territories remained intact, but around them, dozens of species had declared independence or formed new alliances. The Council can continue to govern the species that choose to accept Council governance, Admiral Soo-jin explained, but the days of forcing compliance through military threat are over. "And what of our territories? Our established zones of influence?" Dr. Bo-ra smiled. "What about them? You're welcome to continue claiming whatever territory you want, but claiming something and controlling it are different things." The display zoomed in to show specific examples. Council territories that were now home to human colonies, Zerani settlements, and bases belonging to species the Council had never heard of. "You cannot simply ignore our territorial claims," the Nexari representative said, her crystalline voice ringing with outrage. "We're not ignoring them," Hyun-woo replied pleasantly. "We're rejecting them. There's a difference." Captain Dong-wook spoke for the first time. "For 50,000 years, you've gotten used to being the only ones whose opinions mattered. You drew lines on maps and called them borders. You made rules and called them laws, but you never asked anyone else if they agreed." "The strong make the rules," Velthar said, falling back on the ancient council wisdom. "Yes," Admiral Soo-jin agreed. "They do, which brings us to the new situation." The holographic display changed to show military strengths across the galaxy. The numbers were sobering for the Council. Even combined, their remaining forces were outnumbered by the growing alliance of free species. "We're not here to conquer you," Hyun-woo assured them. "We're here to propose a new arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" Dr. Bo-ra stood and walked to the center of the room. "A galactic assembly, not 12 species dictating terms to everyone, else but a forum where all species can meet as equals. Equals? The ethereal representative's voice was like wind through dead leaves. Young species cannot be equal to those with millennia of experience. Why not? Asked a new voice from the chamber entrance. In walked Commander Yanwu, but she was not alone. Behind her came representatives from dozens of species. Some the council recognized as former subjects who had declared independence. Others were completely unknown. Allow me to introduce some friends, Commander Yanwu said. Species that have been hiding from the council for centuries, waiting for someone to prove that the old order could be challenged. The new delegates spread around the room. Their diversity was staggering. Crystalline beings that made the Nexari look primitive. Energy creatures that dwarfed the ethereals. Mechanical intelligences that had evolved beyond their creators. We are the architects, announced one of the energy beings, its voice like the sound of stars being born. We have watched the council for 50,000 years, waiting to see if they would mature beyond their need to dominate others. A mechanical delegate's voice was precise and emotionless. We are the collective. We have observed 12 species attempting to impose order on a galaxy that contains thousands of sentient civilizations. Velthar looked around the room in growing despair. How many of you are there? Currently. Dr. Bo-Ra checked her tablet. The Assembly has representatives from 147 species. More are arriving every week. This is impossible. The galaxy cannot be governed by committee. The galaxy, Hyunwoo said gently, does not need to be governed by anyone. It needs to be shared by everyone. He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the proposed new structure. No central authority. No imposed territories. Just a vast network of voluntary associations, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Species that want to remain part of the council system are welcome to do so, Admiral Sujin explained. Species that want independence can have it. Species that want to join larger federations can do that too. And disputes between species can be resolved through negotiation, arbitration, or, if necessary, intervention by Assembly peacekeeping forces, Dr. Bo-Ra replied. Peacekeeping forces controlled by whom? By everyone. The Assembly will maintain joint forces contributed by member species on a voluntary basis. The old council representatives looked at each other in confusion. The idea of governing by consent rather than force was alien to them. What of species that refuse to join this assembly? Demanded the Sethrani representative. They don't have to join, Hyunwoo said simply. The assembly is voluntary, but they also can't impose their will on species that choose assembly membership. And if they try? Admiral Sujin's smile became a little less warm. Then they'll discover what happened to the council fleets. The negotiations continued for 3 days. In the end, the terms were exactly what humanity had proposed. The old Galactic Council would continue to exist as a regional government for species that chose to remain members. The new Galactic Assembly would provide a forum for all species to meet and resolve issues peacefully. Most importantly, the principle of voluntary association was established. No species could be forced to submit to external authority, simply because other species demanded it. As the documents were signed, Velthar looked across the table at Hyunwoo. How did you know this would work? How did you know the galaxy would support you against us? Hyunwoo's smile was genuinely sympathetic now. Because we asked them. For 50 years, while you were giving orders, we were having conversations. While you were making demands, we were making friends. But the military technology, the weapons that defeated our fleets, were developed by humans working with scientists from 40 different species, Dr. Bo-Ra explained. Turns out that when you combine human stubbornness with Zerani mathematics, luminar energy manipulation, and architect space-time theory, you get some very interesting results. Admiral Sujin nodded. Project Prometheus wasn't just a human project. It was a collaboration between everyone who was tired of being told what they could and couldn't do by people they had never voted for. 6 months later, the first meeting of the Galactic Assembly convened on a space station built specifically for the purpose. 237 species attended, with more requesting membership every week. The Assembly had no supreme. leader, no central authority, no ability to impose its will on unwilling members. Instead, it had something the galaxy had never seen before. A place where any species, no matter how young or small, could stand as an equal and be heard. Ambassador Hyun-woo stood at the podium on opening day, looking out at a sea of faces that represented more diversity than the galaxy had ever brought together in one place. "Friends," he began, "we gather today not as subjects and rulers, but as equals. Not because anyone forced us to be here, but because we chose to come.